5 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to buy and trade for. This week, the first guy, Brandon Lowe of the Tampa Bay Rays. So Lowe, one of the better pickups so far in the early going in fantasy baseball. And he got off to a hot start the first 3 weeks of the season, but the numbers have tailed off a couple weeks here on the season. 7 home runs, 20 RBIs, 20 runs scored, a stolen base, a 222 average, and a 320 on base. And over the last few weeks here, they've really hit rock bottom a little bit, the numbers. 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 6 runs scored, 159 batting average, and a 213 on base here for Brandon Lowe. So Brandon Lowe last season was a down year for him. This season, the first 3 weeks got off to a hot start, and he qualifies obviously at a weak second base position. So right now, while he's hitting prime time in this Ray lineup, anywhere from first to fourth, it's a perfect time to go out there and get him while he hasn't been doing much over the last few weeks. April 27th at the White Sox, 3 for 4, 3 runs, a homer, 3 RBIs. April 28th at the White Sox, 0 for 4. April 29th at the White Sox, 0 for 3. April 30th at the White Sox, 1 for 5. May 2nd versus the Pirates, 0 for 4. And May 3rd versus the Pirates, 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs. So right now, Brandon Lowe, he definitely hasn't done much here for fantasy owners, and it's a perfect time to go out there and get him. Yes, he's not going to be a high batting average hitter for the remainder of the season, and he really hasn't throughout his career, but definitely a player who could hit 25, possibly 30 home runs this season here, and at a weak second base position in fantasy baseball, you definitely would sign up for that. So right now, while he's been struggling, it's a perfect time to go out there and make a deal for Lowe this week. The next guy's Alex Bregman of the Houston Astros. So Bregman, it's been a down year for him so far in the early going. I know he just came off a game with a home run, but he still hasn't done much this season. 4 home runs on the year, 15 RBIs, 18 runs scored, a 211 batting average, and a 338 on base. But Alex Bregman, I think he's going to break out of it sooner than later for this Houston National team. We just saw it, a home run in the latest ball game here for Bregman. He's putting the ball in play, only 16 strikeouts on the season, and already 118 at-bats, so the ball's getting put in play. Just tough luck with some of the at-bats. And we know he's a guy that could put up 25, 30 home runs yearly, is Bregman, and we've seen it a lot throughout his career. So the last few games here for him, April 28th versus Philly, 0 for 3. April 29th versus Philly, 0 for 4. April 30th versus Philly, 1 for 2 with a run. May 1st versus the Giants, 1 for 5, a run, and RBI. May 2nd versus the Giants, 0 for 4. And May 3rd versus the Giants, 1 for 4, a homer, 2 RBI. So right now, obviously, Bregman's in a tailspin in the early going of the season. But that home run in that game versus the Giants in yesterday's ball game definitely could get him going out of this slump, and a day off as well for this Astro team here today could help him as well. So right now, with him hitting that home run and possibly turning the corner, a hot streak definitely could be on the way for Bregman, and you don't want to miss out on it. So right now, while his value is down and the numbers are down in the early going, fantasy owners should go out there and make a deal for Bregman and buy him this week. The next is Aaron Judge of the New York Yankees. So Judge, mostly the first pick in most fantasy drafts this season. But so far, the numbers, they've been decent, but nothing eye-popping like last season. After coming off that magical year, 62 home runs and 131 RBIs and 311 average. So far in the year for Judge, 6 homers, 14 RBIs, 18 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 261 average, and a 352 on base. So I know Judge, he's only going to be out probably for the minimum on the injured list here, but he definitely was struggling over the few weeks of the season. A 228 average with 4 home runs and 10 RBIs. So Aaron Judge, hopefully that hip gets right. He hasn't been in game action since April 27th, but it looks like I said, he's going to be on the minimum stay, hopefully, and he's been hitting the cage already. So May 8th, May 9th is possibly the return date for Aaron Judge. So the last few games before he went down, April 22nd versus the Jays, 0 for 4. April 23rd versus the Jays, 0 for 4. April 24th at Minnesota, 1 for 4. April 25th at the Twins, 1 for 4 with a run. April 26th at the Twins, 3 for 4, run, 3 RBIs. And April 27th at the Rangers, 0 for 2. So right now, you're still going to have to pay a pretty solid price, obviously, here for Aaron Judge. But with the injury a little bit and the numbers down from what people expected in the early going, even though he could pick it right back up right away as Judge and get in that power stroke, this is a time to go out there and get him, because once he comes back and gets on a hot streak, he could put up those monster numbers, and you would have to pay the premium price, even though the price still is a little steep. I would think to get him this week. The next guy is Carlos Correa of the Minnesota Twins. Correa, it was a crazy offseason for him, obviously, where first he signed with the Giants, then the physical didn't look good. That fell through. Then the New York Mets took a shot on him. The physical they didn't like as well. And then it all ended up him getting a long-term deal, staying with the Minnesota Twins. Third time the charm in the offseason. So on the year here for Correa, not a good year at all. 3 home runs, 12 RBIs. 9 runs scored at 206 average and at 291 on base. But Correa's putting the ball in play. The contact, I know, hasn't been great. But we know he's been a second-half guy for the most part of his career. And a guy could break out at any time as well is Carlos Correa. I know this Twin offense doesn't have a lot of protection in the lineup for Correa, but we know he's a solid hitter. And we know he's a guy that could get hot and stay hot for months on end. Like I mentioned, April 27th versus the Royals, 1 for 3, a homer in that 1 and 2 runs scored. April 28th versus the Royals, 0 for 4. April 29th versus the Royals, 2 for 4. April 30th versus the Royals, 0 for 3 with a run. May 2nd at the White Sox, 1 for 3. And May 3rd at the White Sox, 1 for 5 with a run and 2 RBIs. So right now, with some decent matchups coming up at the White Sox, one more game here today, and then a weekend series at the Guardians. I think Correa could get things going, and fantasy owners right now should take advantage and go out there and try to get him on a discount. Because like I said, the batting average is low, the power isn't there for Correa, and he's just too good of a player to stay in a slump this long after the first month of the season. And like I said, the weather warms up as well, is where these hitters start breaking out in June and July. Some of these big-time hitters. And the 5th and final hitter I look to buy and trade for this week here is Dalton Varsho of the Toronto Blue Jays. So it's been a rough first season here for Varsho with the Blue Jays in the first month of the season. On the year, 4 home runs, 10 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 15 runs scored, an awful 198 batting average, and a 295 on base. So right now, he's below the Mendoza line. But the only thing that he's starting to get going is he's starting to show power is Varsho with 2 home runs in the last 2 ball games. And if he could get going, that's a major boost, obviously, to this Toronto Blue Jay offense. And for fantasy owners, a guy who's playing every day but qualifies a catcher is a huge plus. So right now, the last few games for Varsho, April 28th versus the Mariners, 0 for 4. April 29th versus the Mariners, 1 for 4 with an RBI. April 30th versus Seattle, 1 for 4. May 1st at Boston, 0 for 4 with a stolen base. May 2nd at Boston, 2 for 4, a homer, 3 RBIs. And May 3rd at Boston, that one 2 for 4 with a homer. So right now, playing in Fenway, the power's coming back a little bit for Varsho. Like I said, with 2 home runs in the last 2 games. So right now, still batting under 200 on the season. It's been a tough year, but he's starting to break out of it a little bit now with 4 hits in the last 2 games and the 2 homers. Time to go get him before he gets hot is Varsho, and he's starting to break out of this slump. So that's a few hitters I look to buy and trade for here in Week 5 of the fantasy baseball season.